one of the things I was thinking about watching this film is that I can't wait to see it again on home entertainment because I want to read the supporting information that goes with it. So how did you go about creating such a dense and condensing so much information into a movie?
You know, I really wanted to make sure I had the essence of the collapse. I mean, obviously there's layers and layers of information you can kind of get lost in. So I just kept asking questions. I kept rereading the book, reading other books. And then once I thought I had a sense of it, I just kept practicing telling it to people. I actually practiced on my kids, my 10-year-old daughter and my 15-year-old daughter. And when I was able to explain it to them in about a minute and they got it, I knew I was in good shape.
Mm-hmm. It draws out anger when you're watching it, but not to an overbearing level. Was that difficult, not getting too angry when you were making the movie?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that because I don't want the anger to be debilitating. You know, we should be constructive about this. There's things that need to be fixed. So yeah, it's frustrating. It makes me angry, but at the same time, I'm also overall optimistic. I do think we can fix this system, and I do think in the end of the day, banking does a lot of good for the world. It just needs to be regulated a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, we also learned that it's possibly cyclical and we're going back to the mistakes that we made at that time. Is that a depressing message that we get at the end then?
It's a bit of a bummer, right? I think we wish that wasn't the case. I mean, I'm not sure we're even really going back to it. I don't think it ever really changed. I mean, if you look since the collapse, the banks are way bigger now, and so are the ratings agencies. They never did a clearinghouse for derivatives, which they should have done. They didn't get the capital requirements right. And the banks are definitely still too big to fail. I mean, I think that's madness that those problems are still there. And I don't know how it was here, but in the United States, I feel like we never had a conversation about it either, that a lot of people didn't really understand it. The politicians were just happy to take their checks from the bankers and move on. So hopefully this movie can get a little spark going for that conversation.
Mm-hmm. It's a film that three main characters, I guess, but none of them are really heroes or in the conventional sense, and certainly not villains either. What's it like working with a story like that where you don't have those clear lines?
I loved it. I think, you know, the parameters of heroes and villains sometimes can be so restrictive, and a lot of times they can feel really false. What I loved about these guys was these were guys who were doing their job. They believed in the market, that when there's a bad investment, you do a counter investment. They did due diligence. They were paying attention where no one else was paying attention. And they could have been the heroes, but then halfway through, they realized the corruption was so massive that it was going to affect the entire world. And, you know, they sort of took their checks for their investment, but at the end of the day, all walked away feeling lousy about it. A bunch of them quit the business. And to this day, when you talk to the real people, they're still so angry and outraged that no real change happened.
Mm-hmm. A group of very different actors involved in the movie. How did you go about bringing them together for this?
It was one of those crazy things where whenever I work on a script, I always have a little cork board next to it with some pictures of actors that would be my dream choices. Never, ever do I get those dream choices, except on this movie. Somehow it worked out. It's just crazy. You know, they enjoyed the script, so Christian Bale, Gosling, all these people said yes. And then I got very lucky with the schedule, and it just turned out to be kind of the exact cast that I wanted, all the way down to like Melissa Leo, Marissa Tomei. I mean, just all my favorite actors. It was really fantastic.
Did you face any resistance given the sort of films you've made before making a film like this?
I also got very lucky with the production company that I was dealing with, Plan B, you know, Brad Pitt's company with Dee Dee Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner. They're very open-minded. They had also they knew about other stuff that I'd done in the past. They'd read political articles I'd written. They saw the George Bush Broadway show that I did and had seen political sketches I had written before. So they were aware I had this other side to me, and were completely open to me doing it. So I'm sure there's some other companies out there that would have said no way, but fortunately I got to work with those people, and they were incredible.
Mm-hmm. Given what we said about heroes and villains before, I know you're going to be working in that genre again, superhero films. Has this film, or will it inform how you approach future projects in terms of how you do the characters, or are they very separate genres?
You know, that's a really good question. I think in every genre that you're playing with, you always want to be kind of attacking the genre and playing with it and pulling threads on it. Anytime a genre is too clean, it gets boring. So even with something like Ant-Man, when we wrote that script, we were playing with the genre of, you know, he was a convicted felon, yet he was a hero, yet he was kind of crappy and not that great a dad, and you don't ever want things to be so black and white. It's just not the way life works, and I feel like it becomes a movie for little kids the second when things get too black and white. So hopefully, no matter what I'm working on, I'll always be messing with genres in some way or another, and I think most filmmakers look at it that way.
Excellent. Well, look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,